All right, in a couple of hours in the building right behind me, we expect another Senate vote, the second one in 2 days, on a historic overhaul of financial regulations. It's not an up or down vote on the bill itself, but on advancing the bill toward an eventual vote or stalling it and moving on to something else. Yesterday, the Democrats fell a single vote short of pushing the bill forward. With Goldman Sachs as a backdrop, the Democrats are happy to keep forcing Republicans to seemingly oppose reform on Wall Street. I'm joined now by one of those Republicans, Senator Saxby Chambliss of Georgia, who has been voting against the efforts to reform. Now, that's a tough, for people who aren't following that, Senator, thank you for joining me, by the way.
Sure.
That's a tough one to understand. Why are you voting against reform?
I am not voting against reform. I am voting against proceeding to a bill that is fundamentally flawed, Ellie, that is not going to address the real causes of what caused the collapse in 2008. For example, two of the main players in the 2008 collapse were Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae.
Right.
This bill does nothing to try to bring Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac under control. And the housing boom that we saw was largely fueled by those two entities providing the funding and buying mortgages and whatnot. And when the bubble burst, they came collapsing down, and we saw the federal government have to put $121 billion into those two entities, and there's nothing in this legislation that deals with them. All of us want to control Wall Street. There has been a lot of greed on Wall Street, and we've seen time and time again that people are angry for the right reasons about the big salaries, the big bonuses, and that sort of thing. All of us want to make sure we bring that under control, but if we're going to truly have financial regulatory reform, it needs to be done in the right way, and this bill doesn't do it in the right way.
So what do we have to do to get that? The bottom line is, if you're right, this isn't like healthcare where everybody was moving toward the same goal. Here, we're all moving toward the goal of financial reform. So what has to happen to the bill that has passed the House, that is in the Senate right now, in order to satisfy you and your colleagues?
Well, what has to happen is you have to have the Democrats engage more with Republicans to let's come to the middle somehow. Let's don't overreach, number one. Let's don't, for example, include community banks and agricultural banks like CoBank that are very small players in the marketplace in the same category with the Goldman Sachs and the Citicorps and the big banks on Wall Street. But this legislation does that. In the derivatives title, for example, a community bank in Moultrie, Georgia, my hometown, is treated exactly the same as Citibank on Wall Street in New York City. That's not right. They are not part of the problem. And we don't need a solution looking for a problem for them. So I think what we've got to have is more bipartisan conversation and a more realistic approach to trying to make sure that somehow we get to the middle, as opposed to being in an extreme position where this bill is.
What do we like? Do you like the consumer protections in the bill?
Well, it's another layer of government bureaucracy, and while I don't necessarily think that the idea of protecting consumers is nothing but good, this bill overreaches in that area from this standpoint. Automobile dealers all of a sudden are going to be thrown into the same category as a bank. Automobile dealers are in and out of my office today talking about the fact that automobiles are going to cost more because of the consumer protection provision in here. Orthodontists who routinely extend credit to their clients in putting on braces for 12 months, as I did with my child, they're all of a sudden going to be thrown into a category of having to be regulated because they extend credit for more than 90 days. That's not an intended consequence of this bill.
And I think this is, boy, don't we really have to think about unintended consequences where you think something is good, and we've seen this. We go back to the repeal of Glass-Steagall. We go back to things like the Community Reinvestment Act. All at the time seemed like something good to do, that we're going to help people or make us more prosperous. We have to always look 15 or 20 years out and see what the effect is going to be. But this is a tough one for you, because we are watching right on a screen in front of me. We've got the Goldman Sachs testimony. Unlike healthcare, there is some danger that Republicans are going to look like they don't want reform, and that's what the Goldman people don't want either. That's what the big banks don't want. Isn't there a danger that you'll get lumped in?
No, I don't think so, because I truly think the American people understand Republicans want to be tough on Wall Street. We truly do, and we're ready to do that today. But I don't want to be tough on the community bank in my town of Moultrie, Georgia, or in any rural community bank in America, and they are not part of this problem. Wall Street is a problem, let's make no mistake about it. And we're prepared today to enter into provisions that are going to provide more regulation of Wall Street, tougher sanctions on Wall Street, but let's don't let that drift down to Main Street to where a guy goes in to finance a new washing machine or a new automobile. Why should he have to pay more in charges to the bank for what some bank on Wall Street did? That's not what this bill should be designed to do, but that's what it does.
All right, we'll follow it closely, and if those provisions come your way, we hope you'll be fully engaged in the discussion so that we somehow come up with something that does actually protect
We look forward to
Americans.
getting a good bill to come out, Alan.
All right, Senator, good to see you. Thanks very much.
Great to see you, and get you a diamond-studded set of cufflinks from Henry next time.
Yeah, I tell you, he got me the $15 ones. Good to see you, my friend.
You too.
All right, it's thick, it's slimy, and it's growing fast in the Gulf of Mexico. That oil leak still is not plugged. Now